I streamed the Fabled yesterday, and I had a blast. It's one of those Web3 games in the space that somehow I didn't know about until I did, obviously. And thanks to Chris for that. If you watch this, but yeah. So today I've got Luke, or as he's better known in the Discord, is Aurelian, and I believe he's one of the founders or one of the main lead devs in the game. I'm not entirely sure. I'll ask him in a second. But yes, so we've got him on the channel today. It's going to be awesome. We're going to talk all about the Fabled, kind of the vision for the game, where it's headed, and some things that probably I'd like to know more about the game and how it fits into Web3 as well. So welcome onto the channel, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I mean, let's get into this. I mean, to address your thing there, I mean, I'm the lead developer and CEO of the Fabled and of Octavian Studios. I started working on this game like 3 years ago. So it was originally just kind of like a sort of hobby project for me. It was originally going to be a Web 2 game. And then 2021 is when we started to pivot over, managed to raise some funding, assemble more of a team, and actually, start to get a lot of the more Web3 features kind of sorted in. And then, yeah, I mean, we just released a demo a couple of weeks ago, and that you played. And yeah, no, things are looking pretty good so far. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how the demo went and yeah, your initial impressions.
I think the game definitely looked really great, which was my very first impression that I had, because I played enough Web3 games now to know that they don't often look all that great, and yours still needs a bit of polish and all the rest of it, obviously. But it looked fantastic, especially compared to the Heat. So I did really, really appreciate that. The gameplay was a little bit glitchy, but it was all there, which was really awesome. Just it did feel very Souls in terms of the gameplay mechanics, and that's my favorite part of the Souls series. Actually, it's the gameplay and it's the combat system. I can't get used to combat systems that try to be hybrids of other things, and I can't get used to combat systems that are too easy as well. So the fact that you've got all that there was awesome as well. The enemies are a bit too easy, but then again, I'm not quite a Souls veteran, but I've played enough to find your enemies pretty easy, except for the boss. I still couldn't beat it, so that's definitely given me a challenge. So we'll take a step back really quickly, and we'll jump into the demo stuff a bit later too. So the first thing is, how did you said you've been developing it for 3 years. How did you actually get started in crypto besides building a project, right? So where did your journey start?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd heard of I've been relatively familiar with the space since around 2013 when I first or actually before that, it was actually 2011 when I first started looking into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and I was just fascinated with the technology overall, and I saw the potential there. So the whole space and seeing it from the outside, it wasn't unfamiliar to me. I saw when CryptoKitties started to come out, I saw like the potential for NFTs. And there's a couple other games as well at the time. I had talked to some other projects actually at the time as well as I was developing my game, that happened to be doing Web3 stuff. It was a project called Dissolution, they released their game back in 2018 as an NFT game, as a crypto game. And I was just talking to them just as a game developer, getting into the space myself, the game development space, just trying to learn from people who've released games before, and try to get advice and everything. And so the Web3 scene started to become even more kind of apparent on my radar. And then finally in 2021, I pivoted over and actually started to implement a lot of blockchain technology with actually the help of the guys from Dissolution, who now have a company called Xenum Games, who focuses on back-end infrastructure. So they're helping me with that kind of stuff, because I wasn't familiar with smart contract programming or anything like that. I'm a game developer, and I focus on kind of the hardcore game mechanics. It's my specialty.
So you had a passion for it clearly, but like, why did you choose Souls? Is that, well, as a genre, is that your favorite kind of game, or do you? I'll ask that as a separate question. Why'd you pick Souls?
So my original idea for the game was something in between Dark Souls and Skyrim. I loved Skyrim because of the open world and
Sure.
like the deep sort of lore that it had, and a really kind of dynamic environment that it had. I wasn't quite satisfied with the combat that Skyrim had, and I really liked Dark Souls combat or Souls
Mm,
combat in general. And the Souls genre has a set of rules for how the game kind of is, and these have been tried and tested over a decade now.
mm,
Where when people get into a Souls game, they're pretty familiar with what they have certain expectations with how the game is going to feel and
mm,
everything. And so I was pretty satisfied with the way that those mechanics were. So I figured I could implement those on top of like this other kind of dynamic kind of world that I had in mind. Like Souls games are typically pretty linear. Elden Ring obviously changed that quite a bit,
mm.
but previously they were pretty linear. And my idea was more of a branching sort of open world with Souls-like combat on top of that. And obviously, I'd played Souls games before, so it was I was pretty familiar with what to do and what players were going to expect when they kind of got into this kind of game.
Yeah. I think Elden Ring kind of did your vision then before you did, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But the next thing I need to delve into then is one of my main pet peeves when it comes to gaming in Web3 is integrating blockchain into somewhere where it doesn't make any sense or doesn't
yeah.
add anything to the game. Why did you choose Web3 for a game of that genre anyways? Like, where do you see the Web3 giving you an advantage in terms of the game itself or the
Yeah,
gameplay?
so there are places where implementing blockchain technology makes sense for the game, and then obviously places where it just doesn't make sense. For example, like potions and consumables and arrows and things like that, it doesn't make sense to have those on chain. There's no point. But other things like characters and weapons and items, those unlock a certain amount of features for you. And with the Souls genre itself being like a really hardcore, sort of difficult, challenging set of games, it gives us a lot to play with in terms of making sure that players feel like they have a stake in the game itself. For example, features like permadeath, where if you die,
Mm,
you lose your character or you lose like a bit of progress or something. That's something that blockchain technology allows us to kind of play with, um, and really kind of bend the sort of feature set that are typical for Souls-like games with this really high-stakes combat where your skills are rewarded but also tested, and it can be pretty punishing if you're not that good. Um, so so, for example, in our game, we have plans for multiplayer tournaments where you
mm,
take your character that you've leveled up and you put it into this multiplayer tournament where if you lose your character. And odds are it's going to get put back into a pool where it gets auctioned off to the rest of the community. Um, it also allows us to play with the reward structure. Like, for example, if we have soulbound characters, so you level up your character to a certain degree. Um, and then after a while, like you don't earn tokens, you spend tokens up until a certain point where it becomes that character becomes soulbound. It gets taken out of the liquidity pool and it becomes yours only, where you can then start to earn back some of those tokens that you spent, through skillful play. Of course, it all boils down to that, and that's the core point to this whole game. And something we try to emphasize is that you're not really going to get far unless you actually play the game and actually get good at it. Or at least you're not gonna see the same level of rewards as the skillful players will. Not to say that there isn't opportunities for, you have these different player personas that typically get into these kinds of games. You have like the casual
mm.
players who just play off and on. You have whales who don't really play, but they're more like they sit back and they invest. And then you have like the really hardcore players who really get into the game and go through its entire feature set. Um, so so that's trying to create a set of features that kind of appease all of these different types of player personas has been a challenge, but I think we've gotten there now, and when we're in a good position to start deploying a lot of these game mechanics that we have in mind. That multiplayer one is going to be pretty fun to see happen.
Yeah, yeah, that's something I've wanted to see more in the Web3 space since I joined. Really, that there's this element of why can't you have like players taking NFTs from other players in PvP type scenarios? And then the problem always comes up that, well, how do you make this game enjoyable for someone that's not very good at the game, which you also want to have, you know, you want to enable everyone to play. The next follow-up I'll ask to that though is in Dark Souls, for example, you can go through, and if you're having trouble with a boss, you can go back and you can kill the same enemies over and over and over again until you get a bit stronger, and then you can go face it again. I'm not saying that the game's going to get botted or anything like that, but what I'm saying is there a way? Are you having a way to distinguish between like level 1, level 2, level 3, and with that, like in the later stages of the game, you're getting far more rewarded than in the early stages, then it makes it worth going through there? Or would you just grind the early stages for 20 hours a day and get rewarded? You know what I mean? Kind
of. I mean, at the end of the day, there's an upper limit for some of the kind of on-chain rewards that you can possibly, like, there's a physical limit to how much a person can possibly earn per day. And another thing to keep in mind is that with our game, it's going to be a seasonal release structure. This means that unlike a lot of, Dark Souls or Elden Ring, like in those types of games where it's just a one and done type of thing, it's released once and then you have to wait years before the next iteration. With ours, you can expect new levels and content to be released every couple of months. What this means is that we can put sort of we can hold a reward pool where there's only a certain amount that gets basically released over a certain period of time. And this helps to prevent any exploits, or at least contain any exploits and hacks that might happen, so that they're isolated within a short period of time, and it doesn't affect the overall stability of the game at a larger scale. And then in terms of like controlling how people farm, I mean, we encourage people to kind of farm in our game. Like there's quite a lot of ways in which you can just kind of repeat the same section over and over again. That's kind of why we put the checkpoints there, is that you can go to these different locations and find the best kind of farming spot for you. So if you're having trouble with the boss, well, you got to go back and see if you can pick up some better items, or farm to get ashes to buy more potions and other consumables to help you out. So yeah, I mean, we encourage that kind of play, but there's going to be an upper limit to how much you can possibly be rewarded per day. And you know, it's not meant to be something that you spend kind of 24 hours on, like your entire day on. It's something that you like. It's seasonal, so you come in maybe once a day or once every couple of days. You do your daily task, get your daily rewards, you know, fight a boss or two, and then wait until the next day. That's also why we have an energy system as well. That there's only a finite amount of energy your character has per day, and then you have to either use another character or get energy potions to keep going. Also rewarding skillful play there, because the skillful players will take the most advantage of the amount of energy that they have.
Does dying in the game punish the energy, I'm assuming?
It's going to punish not your, I mean, if you exit out of the abyss and you go back to, right now it's the main menu, in the future it'll be the overworld, then yeah, you're going to have to spend energy to get back in, or use up energy to go back in, and so that will be punishing in itself. And if you use like the wrong character, or you select the wrong build and you don't have a strategy going into this, you're going to have to keep going back in and out, using up your energy unnecessarily. So it really rewards strategic and skillful play, and kind of understanding how the game works and taking advantage of it. So
now, well, I want to bring it back to the demo itself. I think so that's really interesting. I like the idea of the core thesis being rewarding skillful play, and in any Souls genre, that's what the core thesis should be. So I'm glad that lines up. So going back to the demo, so I played it yesterday. I got through. I only really faced 3 different kinds of enemies, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then I got to the boss and I couldn't beat it. It was pretty cool, actually, by the way. The textures were a little bit low res, but I liked it. It was creepy. It was fun. It was interesting.
I saw what resolution settings were you playing at? I saw it looked like a pretty low.
I was low at the time. Settings. Yeah, because I couldn't stream it on higher res, and I'll have to go back and stream it.
Okay.
I do remember it looked a lot better when I had it on the higher res when I first started the game up. So there's definitely that as well, for sure. But so I got up to this final boss, Is there anything after the demo when you beat that boss, or do you not have anything in the game yet? Or kind of what's next for the demo itself, and how much have you actually
Yeah.
built so far?
Yeah. So um, we have we've split this demo up into 3 phases. Phase 1 was just released a couple weeks ago. Phase 2 is planning to be released within the next month or two. That'll contain new enemy types, new enemies, a new boss. It opens up a new section of that level itself. We have that level. There's like 2 other sections in that level that are locked right now. Um, and the idea is just to like we wanted to just give people a taste, see how it was perceived, work on any critical bugs and things that might have happened, and then we release the next set of content. So we have 2 more phases coming up with basically a brand new plethora of content to enjoy there. New sections, that castle in the distance, you're going to be able to go
Mm.
into it. Um, and so yeah, there's quite a lot coming up in the future, and it's pretty much all done now. We're just kind of polishing things, working on bugs, taking the feedback and working with it there. But yeah, there's a lot more to come. But yeah,
So
after you defeat this guy, um, that'll be it for this section of the demo.
that's I had a feeling it felt like a very much an end game thing, but it did take me quite some time to get to him. I think it would take people a lot longer if they hadn't played Souls before. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, yeah, no, we're
um,
seeing that it takes about an hour and a half to sometimes 2 hours for new players to get through.
yeah. So Walking Further asked a really good question in the chat just before: is how big is your team?
Yeah.
What sort of development structure do you guys have, and how fast do you think you could get out levels? Like,
Um, yeah, so we have. I was just laughing at Ricky saying these guys look the same. um, so yeah, we have a team of about 20 right now. The game started with just me at first, and then I hired on an art director and a bunch of 3D artists. And luckily, right now we have sort of a super team where it's not like one guy is just doing one thing. We all kind of wear multiple hats, and that really helps kind of make the overall pipeline really efficient. And I'd spent a lot of time in the past 3 years working on an extremely efficient development pipeline, because I had anticipated just doing this all myself. So I needed to be able to find deficiencies in the overall development. Now that I have a team, I can pass that over to the team, and so we can expect new levels. Like we're already midway through making the next entire level right now, and so we can expect new levels every 4 to 6 months.
mm,
So twice a year right now, and then that time increment is going to get shorter as we build up an asset library and we start to figure out even more efficiencies in the development pipeline. So yeah, 4 to 6 months is what we're aiming for a whole entire kind of series of new content, bosses, characters, weapons, items, everything.
yeah, it sounds really interesting. And I actually really like the weapons and things in the game that you had the other day that I played. I thought it was great. There weren't that many weapons, and but there was this feeling when you found a new weapon, especially if it was relatively rare, and it's like, oh, I've got to equip this, I've got to test it out and stuff. I think, yeah, as much of that loot sort of stuff that you can incorporate into the game will be really fun to watch. That being said, I couldn't get the arrows to work. They just flew through everything, and nothing worked on that front. I don't know if that was
Really,
my end doing something.
I'm gonna have
But
to go watch the stream again. It might have been the type of arrow that you were using that might have had a bug in it or something.
I tried the explosive ones as well, did nothing. It was really weird.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's weird.
the next thing we jump into is well, just quickly on that, are you guys going to expand your development team? Say you start selling NFTs and things, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Say you
Yeah.
start selling that and you generate a decent amount of revenue and things, or the game's generating revenue. Are you going to expand the team as quickly as you can? Because I definitely see a risk in not having a development team large enough to keep up with the crypto space moves quickly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Um, so right now our development team I'm pretty satisfied with it. We can work pretty efficiently, I would say. A lot of the bottlenecks are actually on. I would say they're kind of. I mean, you can only work so fast. I mean, we can only pump out so many characters and things like that. But at a certain point, you need more variety in terms of like animations and boss ideas for bosses and things like that. Um, but obviously I want to expand this thing a lot bigger. right now it's kind of risky, especially with what's happening in the overall industry. Like 60,000 people just got laid off in the overall tech industry over the
Yeah.
past couple months. So it's not exactly the best time to expand, but and to address the other question there I saw regarding funding, this was self-funded up until last year, where we managed to get some funding from some VCs, and now and that's how I was able to expand the team.
Mm.
So we have enough of a runway for the next couple of years at our current rate, and if obviously if we sell some NFTs or we get some more revenue, um, I'll definitely look into expanding the team because there are some positions that I would like to fill to make things just a little bit easier.
Mm.
Um, but as it stands right now, I think we're in a really good position.
Um, I had a question. I can't remember what it was. Oh, are you thinking of, because you talked about wanting to integrate Skyrim and things like that, and Skyrim's probably a bad example for this, but Elden Ring did shake up the genre a lot, and that's probably messed with your head a bit enough. But do you have any ideas for expanding the gameplay further, or do you want to keep it very grounded and down to earth? Like, do you imagine people flying around shooting arrows or anything like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen any of the other trailers that we've had, but we have an entire separate game mechanic of dragon riding, which is
Oh,
something
I
that
have seen
not
that one
even
actually. Yeah.
yeah, it's something that not even Elden Ring or Skyrim has. I mean, Skyrim kind of has it, but it's on rails. This is more like you're completely free to fly that
Mm.
dragon. Um, so that's something new that we're definitely bringing to the table. I want to polish it up a little bit more before I release a level with that kind of feature in there, but it's definitely something that's in the pipeline, and I think that's something that's pretty new and not a lot of games do in general, but especially not Souls games. Um, and then there are certain things that you come to expect from Souls games that we want to expand on. Weapon types and weapon variety and the special
Mm.
attacks and things that you can do. Magic as well is something that's coming down the pipeline that we're working on. So yeah, there's quite a lot I think that we're bringing new to the table, to justify us as being like our own sort of take on the Souls genre itself.
Yeah, no, I forgot about the dragons. That's actually really, really exciting. That's one of the things that really drew me in. I like saw the trailer. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, so it's Souls, but you can also ride dragons.
Yeah.
Making that particularly interesting is going to be a challenge, but I think you can pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, luckily that features are like I think the hard parts of that feature are done. So it's a matter of polishing it up. But yeah, that was one of the core focuses when I first started developing this game, and I was like, I really want to ride a dragon. So I spent like months working on that.
Because you
So
can
yeah,
you can give them all personalities too, and I don't know how far you're going to take that, but there's, especially when it comes to NFTs and things, owning your own custom dragon is going to be quite an impressive feat, and I
yeah,
look forward to those sides of the gameplay where your NFT library is kind of like testament to how much, not just how much you've played the game, but how much you've endured and the sort of things you've gone to, and kind of embedding that story into your collection. I think is going to be a really powerful system. Um, and
absolutely.
and Silent just really quickly wants to know, what's the magic system going to be like? Similar to Souls, or?
Kind of similar. I mean, it it's going to be tied to staffs that you use, and each staff has its own sort of magic abilities. Actually, you know what? I would compare it more to like Skyrim magic in the sense of like you'd pick up staffs in Skyrim that had their own kind of enchantments on them and their own abilities that you can use. So it'll be like that, and each staff has like a special heavy and light series of attacks, magic attacks that you can use with it.
Hmm.
And the mage characters are going to be specially tailored for benefiting you in this regard.
So we'll keep this going, and the NFTs, right? So some things are soul bound, they're not NFTs and things like that. We've covered all that off. Are you going to be doing any sort of NFT pre-sales? Is that coming up soon or later, or is it mostly going to be? Can you find NFTs when you're playing? For example, I found some rings and weapons. Are they all going to be NFTs when you find them?
So we have two different kind of methods of handling the items within the game. We distinguish these as soft and hard mints. Soft mints are items that exist um, purely on a database off chain.
Hmm.
Those would be the common and sometimes uncommon items that you find there. In For the purposes of this demo, we put them all there just so we can test the balancing. But in the future, common and uncommon items are the ones that you would find in the game like that. And then you can mint those on chain, and get access to the marketplace. and where they also get a stats boost, so they become any of the higher tier rarities on top of that. Um, and then when it comes to characters as well, like the game is going to be free to play, so you can actually just get in without a wallet or without anything and just play the game and earn items in that way. Obviously, to transfer things over to the blockchain, you're going to need a wallet, and that's where you would have to spend any money. But at first, you don't need to spend a dime to actually just play the game. So that's kind of how that works. And the way you're going to earn items within the game is just simply by defeating uh, bosses. I'm talking about the hard minted items, which are the items that are
Mm.
on chain. Those are earned through defeating bosses, and any of the climactic sort of events that you would find in any of these levels, whether it's a boss or like platforming and things like that. Um, at the end of that, that's where you would find the kind of rarest loot.
Are you gonna have any invading or anything like that, where you can just jump into someone's world, murder them, and take all their shit?
So at the moment, no. But I wouldn't put that as a card off the table. um, but yeah, for now, at least, the multiplayer functionality is going to be limited to co-op and tournaments, so PvP
Yeah.
that both players kind of agree to.
so, so the next thing I want to bring up is actually Ricky's question here, and I'm gonna expand on it a little bit. Where do you have any plans for any sort of NFT land? Now, I don't know if it would fit into your game in particular, but I've always loved NFT land where you generate revenue from the players playing the game and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know how you guys would involve that, but is there any ideas for that? Heavy customization, NFT land, that sort of stuff?
So in the pipeline right now, we have this concept of the overworld. Now, at the moment, we just have one level for you to go through, so there's no need for the overworld exactly. But the overworld is kind of like your main hub. Think of it like in Destiny or these kinds of games where you have a main hub, but you go into a menu. In our case, it's a portal, and you have a series of levels and challenges to kind of select from there. Now, this main hub is going to allow you to have a piece of land, I guess you could call it, um, a house, and some form of passive item earning that comes from it. So in at least in the short term, it's going to be consumables. So you have a house, you have a farm. That farm spawns you consumables like potions or ingredients to make potions
Mm.
um, every day. And you can select different houses will give you different kind of perks. Some will spawn things for like healing, others will spawn things for energy generation, and so on. Now, at the moment, there's kind of no need for that because we're still in the early stages. We only
Mm.
have one level, but that's something that's planned right now. Obviously, any pets you have or your dragon, for example, will be there as well. Um, and there's going to be a bunch of different types of these kinds of lands to choose from, and so that's what we have in mind there as sort of like a way for you to choose your main hub. And then there's also other kind of we want to implement a trophy system as well, and allow you to display your trophies earned from in the game, but also things from outside of the game itself, whether it's PFP NFTs or things like that that you can display as like paintings within your house, and so on. These are things that are planned for a little bit later down the line. We want to kind of tackle the hard stuff first, like actually making sure that there's a game for you to play first. But yeah,
Will
that's kind of the plan there.
will other people be able to see your house and stuff, or is this just exclusive to you?
No, when the co-op feature is live, yeah, you'll be able to invite other people into your server, basically.
Because something a game hasn't really done yet, and it's a gigantic missed opportunity. And I'm just going to put it out there. But something no one's really done yet is storefronts. I think someone mentioned it to me the other day as well, and I can't remember what game they were referring to. But I imagine this world where, and I think it could fit pretty decently if you've already got houses and things pre-built, and your dragons sitting there and stuff. But I imagine this kind of concept of a city where everyone's houses are set in a specific plot in this city, and you can walk through and you can go to someone's house and they'll have like an AI or something at the front or an NPC or whatever. But they're selling certain things of their loot, and you can just buy it directly from this player and stuff instead of it doesn't replace a digital interface where you can just search up the best item to buy, but it would be a unique experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean something like that is very, at least just thinking about it out loud would be very technically challenging, and yeah, that would give me nightmares to try to implement something like a storefront marketplace that's, and handling the servers for that is also
Mm.
pretty intimidating. But I would never say never, because I mean we've gotten this far already. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so an obvious question. Someone asked it before. So you're going to be pre-selling some sort of NFTs. You're definitely going to be pre-selling the houses, I guess. Is there an NFT drop coming soon, or what should people be looking forward to in the coming months?
yeah, so in the near future, there isn't a proper NFT sale planned just yet. Right now, we have mint passes and mint keys that are available. We actually give them away for free to our communities, for participating in our community in general and participating in events. And these allow you, firstly, they allow you access to the alpha without having to be on the whitelist. And they also allow you to reserve up to 2 characters, depending on which NFT you have. There's mint keys, which give you 1 character and one item, and mint passes, which give you 2. And so these are all we have at the moment on our OpenSea, and we plan on having, at least I would say by phase 3 is when we'll start to do test the waters with a really small kind of NFT sale or NFT giveaway that gives you exclusive items within the game itself. So if you have, depending on what it is, probably a weapon or an item, um, you just, when you log into the game, that'll be added to your inventory
Mm.
if you have that item in your wallet. So that's kind of what we're doing at first. At the moment, and this addresses the other question I saw there by Flybreath, which is at, or someone asked, sorry, what stage we are in the game, or it was JK. Um,
Mm.
and we're in the alpha stage, so we're testing the balance of all these characters and items before we bring them live as NFTs, because we don't want to be touching those too much, especially if they exist on chain. It's kind of a real pain to adjust their stats and rebalance
Mm.
things, and that'll have kind of a negative effect on the overall community if we suddenly like nerf something that the community is like really engaged with, or really using a lot. So we want to get that, a lot of this balancing stuff out of the way first before we start doing like live NFT sales and things like that. But the NFTs will be like characters, weapons, items, eventually dragons, and then house plots as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, reserve me a dragon, please. We'll definitely the biggest, reddest one you can find, and let me
Yeah.
name it too. I'll name it something funny.
Oh
We'll
yeah,
see.
that's for sure.
So I only have a few questions left before we start to wrap this thing up. We'll keep it a little bit short today because we want to make it concise, detailed, as we need. The blockchain, right? I have my own personal preferences on blockchains I like to see things on. What are your current plans if you don't have a guaranteed blockchain already?
So
Like,
at the moment so with our backend provider Xenum, they're working. Well, they have a bridge set up. So ideally, we want to be multi-chain, and that's just so that we don't have to have all our eggs in one basket. As we've seen how volatile this space is with a bunch of different chains. Um, we don't want to be 100% committed behind one individual chain. And luckily, a lot of the chains are pretty open and cool with this kind of decision. Like we've been talking with Polygon, Binance, a lot of EVM compatible chains, but also others like IMX,
mm,
for example, and a lot of gaming focused chains. IMX in particular, it falls within this category. So we're really open to being multi-chain, and we don't have any kind of hard commitments to either one. It's whatever supports the best for us and what we're doing for our project. Um, so that's kind of how we're approaching that, keeping the bridge secure and managing, different liquidity pools and such are going to be technical challenges, but I'm sure we can tackle them. And yeah, it comes down to whatever chains kind of benefit us the most at the moment, and not putting ourselves at unnecessary risk.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I love Polygon for gaming and stuff like that, but IMX is mostly where my head's at. I think
Yeah, yeah, we've
that's
been
the
talking to
safest
them
option.
quite a lot. They're really cool.
Yeah, easy. Okay, so I'm getting a bit lost with my questions here, unfortunately. So the next thing I need to kind of point out is there's a lot of people showing interest in the chat as well and stuff as well, and I'm glad, I'm happy they're getting around this too. I think this game's gonna be really interesting to watch in the future for sure. What's the best way someone can register for the alpha or the beta at the moment? Like, what do you suggest?
Yeah, just go on our website and sign up, and then come into our Discord. And I mean, we're pretty liberal with how we give out these whitelists for the most part. Um, if you're a streamer or you do anything like that, and you're a content creator of any kind, we're happy to get you on board. We have a content creators program, um, and we are really looking for feedback right now, and people who are going to play the game and actually give us useful critique and useful feedback, in terms of like balancing and bug fixes and anything like that. So get on our Discord, chat with myself and the team, and sign up on our website, and then you can just download it from our website as well. We're currently working on a Steam page and Epic page, to make things a lot easier for like updating and things like that.
Mm.
Those should be coming pretty soon, but in the meantime, it's just a simple download on our website, and then you log in with the account that you make on our website, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. It was pretty easy for me to get too. I had to get whitelisted, which took a little while. But besides
Yeah.
that, it's pretty smooth
Yeah,
process.
sorry about that. That was my fault.
It's all good. That's no stress. Yeah, easy. So the other thing is, like, I know this is a bit of a loaded question, but when do you think the game might come out? Now we're talking like on the blockchain, basically, and how many levels
Yep.
do you think it'll have when it first launches? Also, are they all going to be? Are they going to be adjacent or linear? Like level 1, level 2, level 3, or just you go into a level?
So the game is going to come out, like the first official season, I would probably put it around Q3 of this year, um, lining up with any kind of sales that we do and any kind of token going live as well, because we want to get all these like monetization mechanisms in place first, balance out the game's economy, and actually balancing out the characters and weapons and items, and then bringing things online and live. And so we'll start to slowly implement that during this alpha phase, and even during the next phase, the next actual level that we release. Um, and in the meantime, just kind of working on balancing until the first official season. It would be technically, by the time the next level is out. And that would have enough, I guess, blockchain functionality embedded into it that it can be justified as like the official release.
Mm.
And be obviously live, and not, you don't need to like be whitelisted or anything like that to get access to it. Um, so that's kind of what we're aiming for right now.
So wait, how
There was
far
another
away was that again? Sorry.
about Q3 is what we're aiming
Okay.
for, unofficially. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that is contingent on how the market in general is, and um, how this implementation of other blockchain features, um, turns out. So far, it's looking pretty good. We haven't really had any problems with people with mint passes getting access or anything like that, and the tests that we've done internally have been pretty smooth. So we're also waiting on a store page as well that we're developing, that's on our website. So you'll be able to see your entire inventory there, and then buy, sell, and trade. And working on
Mm.
the UX is a huge priority for us. For me in general, it's one of my biggest pet peeves in Web3, that the UX and UI just suck, and we're trying to address that and make it as smooth as possible. Like, I hope getting into this game is as smooth as like it should just be like that. Like, you sign up on a website and then you log into the game. That's all you should need to do, really. And so making it as smooth as possible is something that we're really testing out as well. But that's going pretty good too. So we should have first kind of live look at the marketplace slash website inventory system within the next couple of months, I would think.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm a UX UI designer, so believe me, I feel your pain when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That being said, I'll say the UI in the game was heavily inspired by Dark Souls, and that shows. But no, you did a good job with it. You got the information across quickly, easily, and I really had no issues navigating it at all. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely credit where it's due for sure. So the
Thanks.
only
I
other
mean,
thing,
UI
yeah,
is
yeah.
freaking hard.
Yeah, UI can take a lot. Sometimes people don't understand that to begin a UI, the UI is one thing, but it's the UX that's really the most important. And
Yep.
you need to figure out who your players are and what they want to get out of the UI. Sometimes, if the UI is hard for you to understand, but the game is highly successful, then that just means that you look for very different things than the everyday person looks for in a UI, which is really interesting. But no, there's
Yep.
a lot of science to it, believe me. As far as the crypto token goes, this is kind of the last thing I want to touch on is how does that really work in the ecosystem? So I would have imagined that the ashes, I think you're calling them, or what you would call souls in the Dark Souls series, would have made most sense as kind of like the token or to some degree. How does yours actually work?
So the token, the on-chain token that we have is kind of like, it functions as like a premium currency, whereas the ashes are sort of like your in-game passive currency. Think of it like how, I don't know if you've ever played like Game of War or anything like that, any of those types of
No,
games. Um, what's another? Lost Ark has like 4 different currencies.
no, I never played
Um,
Lost Ark.
but yeah, so these are just basically different buffers and allows for different feature sets. For example, like, well, with the token, with the on-chain token, you don't earn that until you soul bind your character, and in which case you can only earn tokens through a soul bound playthrough, basically, of that soul bound character. That takes the character out of effectively burning it as far as the marketplace is
Mm.
concerned, because you can't sell that anymore. So it limits the overall amount of characters that are going to be there, but also rewards you with, on the other hand, with the ability to earn some of these tokens that you would have needed to either spend or at least acquire in some way in order to level up your character high enough for it to be soul bound. Um, so these kind
Oh,
of allow
okay.
us these different sort of features. Whereas like ashes are things that you can passively earn within the game. They're used mainly for things like consumables and potions and things like that. Um, and at the moment you can buy characters with them, but that's not how it's going to be. I put that in there as a sort
Mm.
of testing out of the overall progression system to attaining a character. Um, but this is also going to be used for leveling up the character as well in the future. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how we're treating the on-chain token. There's a couple other features as well that can go into it. Most of it's actually in our white paper. If you go on our website and just click on the white paper tab, you can see an entire category and section there of all the different on-chain token features, and then the off-chain um, tokens as well. But basically, treat it like a premium currency that you'd find in games like sort of Game of War and stuff, where you have like typically you have to buy gold in order to get access to some other premium features.
Yeah, well, I'm more than happy. I've got because Illuvium's obviously my bread and butter here, but I need souls in the Web3, and I'm glad that someone's doing it, and I'm glad you've got all these new ideas and things that you're bringing to it as well. There's nothing worse
Yeah,
than putting something on the blockchain and copying a Web2, right? So
yeah,
yeah, you're adding so much. You've got the dragons and things, which would be super exciting for everyone. Everyone's so obsessed with land, but what about buying dragons? That's the goal here, right?
yeah.
So, is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience, tell me, or anything before we close this one out?
No, just feel free to join our Discord and have a chat with the team, and we can get you whitelist access. If you say that you're from this stream as well, I'll let the team know, and we'll kind of fast track you there. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what you guys think of the alpha so far, and just know that there's a lot more to come very soon. And yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk here.
Yeah, no problem. We'll have to get you on another time too. I feel like the game will move a bit quickly, and we'll have to keep up with it. I mostly keep up with Illuvium, but I'm going to keep up with this one as well. I'll stream it every now and then too because it's so much fun to play. I need a little bit more than the one boss though, personally. But once we have
Oh,
that, I'll
there's
definitely be
more coming,
streaming
trust
more.
me.
I'm very excited to see it. All right, awesome. Have a good one, man. I really appreciate it.